Hello. So I've been getting a lot of messages this morning, both from friends and people I don't know, and I've been getting a lot of mentions and a lot of tweets, both this morning and mostly last night. And a lot of people were rightfully asking you, "What the fuck, man? Did you just say or imply that Pat Irvine specifically, promotes legitimate civilian targets for murder?" And that wasn't the case. I very, very quickly actually said that this wasn't the case. Now, from my point of view, there were a lot of people that just refused to take yes for an answer. That is just how the internet is. So it didn't surprise me. I basically just ignored it. But you know what? Maybe we'll try and condense this down, right? And address it all in one go. So Pat Irvine tweeted at me, "Open forum only if you agree with them." And then Stefan, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, exposing my own ignorance, sorry, but rightfully said, wait and see what Ben says. Smacks of censorship. Also, I could address that for 2 hours as well. So I quite rightfully thought, oh, they're talking about the person I kicked. I kicked one person from the space. I think it's actually the first person I've ever kicked from a space after 7 or 8 months of really positive dialogue. I kicked someone called Sean, and I do not apologize for kicking them because they came on and said that there are and were legitimate targets for murder. Civilian targets for murder, no less. Putting bombs under cars, stuff like that. So, I that's what I thought they were talking about, and I actually still sort of believe that that's what they were saying. So I said, call it whatever you want, but I won't accept anyone from any community saying there are legitimate targets for civilian or legitimate civilian targets for murder. And I actually quote tweeted myself very similar tweet. It's still up. I have not deleted a single tweet. And actually, on that, somebody had asked me, why don't you just delete all the tweets? Well, first of all, I don't actually think that would make anything better other than maybe people picking up on it after the fact. I am not getting rid of the evidence. It's all there. It's all there. And whenever I say it's all there, 2 or 3 tweets of mine that have been taken out of context are there compared and contrasted to 3, 4, 500 worths of mentions that I got, a lot of which were abusive, demeaning, ad hom, you're a child, oh, get the nappies out. It's so hilarious. Like, these people would not have the decency to even come on the space and say, look, Ben, Pat is a good person who had family and friends murdered. And I would have said, yeah, that's really wrong, and what Pat went through is disgraceful. What Pat had to suffer with and still suffers with is disgraceful. It's not okay. But that is not in conflict at all with me saying anybody who's coming on to a space that I'm hosting or one of my friends is hosting, that if they're coming on to say that there are legitimate targets for murder, i.e. that some of the murders of family members of people were actually fair dues, is not okay. And that's not even a self-defense argument. I'm for self-defense, even if it ends in the worst kind of thing, but putting bombs under cars, that's not self-defense. That's indiscriminate killing. And again, let me clarify, I never once suggested or said that Pat was the one promoting this. Not once. And I made really, really sure to reply several times, wasn't talking about Pat, literally replying to Pat asking why this person had been kicked from the space. So, yeah, I very specifically, right, I want to apologize to Pat for my ambiguous tweet. I can see why Pat thought that I was saying to her, oh, you're saying this. No, I didn't. But at the same time, Pat actually gets a pass from me, right? Pat has every excuse to, be upset, whether it's reasonable or not, right? Had family murdered. I think that gives her a pass, sadly. But everybody else that was dogpiling me refused to take yes for an answer. The way people were responding to me yesterday was as if I was Jimmy Bryson. You've literally taken one of the most liberal, left-wing, small U unionists. I would be considered a Lundy. I am called a Lundy by so many people. The amount of unionist representatives that have called me a cultural Marxist and part of the problem and fucking lib whatever, you're absolutely barking up the wrong tree. So if you refuse to take yes for an answer, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. And all I would say to those people specifically is, have fun with that. Like, that really, really sounds like a miserable Sunday. Like, get some hobbies. There's some footy on today. Watch that. Go outside. It's sunny. It's like, God. And the other thing which is really important, so I've apologized to Pat. She does not have to accept the apology, but it's there. I'm sorry that she was upset. That is my view on it. It should have never been the case. Maybe I should have taken 10 extra seconds to think, oh, maybe I'll tag the other guy just to make sure it's obvious who we're talking about. But now that is put aside, you see the absolute bile and hatred towards Anne? These are people saying, oh, right, Pat has this history of having family and friends murdered. That same respect was not given to Anne by the hundreds of people that were tweeting. It wouldn't even be a niche example for me to bring up any of those tweets that were basically painting Anne Travers as like some far-right bigoted unionist who only recognises certain victims of the Troubles. If you're saying that, you actually know fuck all about anything, you are embarrassing yourself, and you know what? Twitter is exactly the sort of place that you belong, i.e. somewhere devoid of nuance, devoid of facts, and just devoid of any decency and humanity. So if you're out there saying, you know what, Pat Irvine deserves respect, you're correct. But if you're also out there saying, oh well, Anne Travers, pfft, well fuck her, you are absolute scum. I do not apologise for that. And you, any of you plural that were talking about Anne in that light, you owe her an apology. Now again, I don't really give a fuck about some anonymous little trolls or people who are dogpiling the day after having no idea like what went on. But at the end of the day, there are only some people, it seems, that accept that all the murders over the Troubles were wrong, didn't need to happen, and are something to be mourned. I would have thought that was the bare minimum. Murder equals bad, right? And more specifically to Sean, this guy Sean came on spouting, legitimate targets for murder. He's someone that calls himself a socialist. Fuck off, mate. You know fuck all about socialism. If you knew one bit about socialism, you would realise that you don't go after the proletariat. You don't go after the proletariat. We are all under the same system. So for you to say, this young guy who joined the RUC because that was the only bloody job at the time, he's a legitimate target for murder, you are bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. There's nothing socialist, internationalist, or anything about that. We are all in this together against the people that hold us down, and I'm sorry, the people holding you down aren't working class Protestants, or Catholics, or otherwise. You are in fantasy land if you think that. You cannot call yourself a socialist or internationalist and then go on and say there are legitimate targets for civilian murder. That is absolutely mind-boggling to me, so hopefully I made that very, very clear. I do apologise to Pat for the trauma that she went through based on my ambiguous tweet. I accept that, But again, I was responding to her asking, or essentially asking, why that person was kicked. And that person, Sean, the little brainlet Sean, was kicked because he was trying to suggest that some of the murders over the Troubles were A-OK. I disagree. I think every murder over the Troubles were unnecessary and achieved nothing and actually set us back. Every one of those murders, McGurk's, every one of those murders, a fucking tragedy. Anne Travers's family, sister, mother, saw it in front of her own eyes. Absolute tragedy. Well, it's a pity that some of the people that dogpiled me yesterday, again, doesn't upset me personally because, fuck, scum's gonna scum, right? But it is so pathetic and utterly immoral that you say you care about victims and then can look at someone like Anne who, I don't know. I thought this was pretty obvious, but the main takeaway of this is, again, Pat, I'm trying to understand, your background. I wouldn't even claim that I know what it's like. I don't know what it's like. I can only imagine what it's like to have family and friends murdered and taken away from you by some dogmatic arseholes, whether it's state or paramilitary. It's all wrong. It is all wrong. And obviously, any state endorsed stuff is probably even more wrong, but that's aside from the point. All the murders, really fucking wrong. Did not help anybody. Didn't move us forward. And we're not talking about self-defense here, if someone's got a gun to your head, work away, do your best, but that's not the same as planting a bomb under some young guy's car just because he joined the RUC a couple of weeks ago, or murdering some Catholics because they're on their way to church, or it's nonsense. It's nonsense to suggest that any one murder was a force for good in the Troubles. To say that is to not understand, not care about legacy, reconciliation, or Northern Ireland, North of Ireland, 6 counties, whatever you want to call it, for everybody. It is inconsistent with the idea of a shared Ireland, in my opinion. But yes, very finally, Pat, much love to you. I obviously did not mean that in the way that it was taken. And again, I tried to explain myself several times, saying, look, this wasn't directed to you, Pat. You can take the apology. You cannot take the apology. I wish you the most love in the world. Never should have happened. You deserve better. And, well, to the other people that got involved, I, don't do you anything. Sorry. It's either way, but I'm really sorry, Pat. I really mean it. And I'm always here as well in DM, in the spaces to talk. I didn't kick you from the spaces. You are and always have been welcome to join, to listen, to speak, to whatever. Your voice is important, especially as a victim. Anyway, I'm going to enjoy my Sunday the best I can. I hope everybody does the same. Take it easy.